Welcome to Antarctica and welcome to the National Geographic Explorer. Antarctica is special. It's unique, unlike anywhere else in the world, because it's an ice-covered continent. Usually it's people's 7th continent to visit, one of the most difficult places in the world to get to. Wildlife is not afraid of the humans, so there in the Galapagos, that's about it, where you have these magnificent animals come walking up to you, watching their natural behaviors at this time of the year where there's so much productivity. We're at the height of the summer, so it's really magical to come visit this special part of the world. Thank you for joining us for what is sure to be an unforgettable voyage.
So here we are, we're just passing over the Drake Passage. We've had a smooth crossing and we're approaching the peninsula. And we've got some Cape Petrels here next to the ship. And I'm photographing them. And the camera's trying to focus on them. Sometimes it's focusing on the water instead of the bird, so I'm shooting a lot. I'm paying attention to my shutter speed, because either I want to freeze the bird and I go to a high shutter speed, or I want to get a little motion and I go to a slower shutter speed. So those are the two things. I've got it on shutter priority right now, continuous focus, high speed, and when they come along, I'm just shooting away. Then later on, I'll find one picture that'll be like perfect and it'll make me look good.
I've never seen snow before, and so we came to Antarctica. But now it's snowing and you can see it flying around and it's really cool.
We could have gone to Queenstown in New Zealand where we live to see snow, but no, we came to Antarctica.
It's amazing. Look, see it.
Welcome to Antarctica and welcome to Half Moon Bay, everyone. I just wanted to congratulate you. You're here already.
Yay!
And we're going to have a fun time. And the way how we're going to do this is that we're going to walk with our naturalists up the hill, over that area, and then top again down the hill. How fun is that?
It's amazing. We've been working on it for a year, planning, plotting our course, working out where to go. By and large, this is outstanding.
1, 2, 3. Yay! She's a good, and she was a high jumper, which is even funnier that she chose.
I'm going to do a major slide, and it's going to be dynamic, and I won't do zip lines, but I will slide.
Peace on Earth.
our first landing at Half Moon Island in the South Shetland Islands. We are mostly hearing and seeing the activity of nesting chinstrap penguins. And there's 6 or 7 other species of birds that are nesting here regularly, but it's the chinstrap penguins that are stealing the show here during the sort of mid-breeding season. So we're seeing chicks of different ages. Some still have eggs, some have 1 egg, 1 chick. Yeah, and it's wonderful making this our first stop for our Antarctic expedition, because it truly does have an Antarctic feel to it, and it gives our guests a chance to get out there, take a nice hike, come see beautiful, beautiful nesting chinstrap penguins, and enjoy the beautiful Antarctic weather, a little bit of snowfall, a little bit of wind, and the sounds and smells of a penguin colony.
Here we are in Brown Bluff. This is our continental landing. We are in the Antarctic continent proper, and this is the home of more than 20,000 breeding pairs of Adelie penguins. These are the iconic Antarctic penguins, the one with the proper tuxedo, black and white. Here at Brown Bluff, the colony is doing very, very well. We can see lots of action in this breeding colony. There's so much happening. We know that these penguins have arrived in October, and by November they have established their territory, built their nest, and then laid the eggs. The incubation of the eggs takes around 32-35 days, and later hopefully 2 chicks will hatch, and then parents will have a lot of work to do for the next 2 months. Now both parents will be sharing the chores of raising these chicks, and there are certain environmental conditions that will determine whether the 2 chicks get raised together. Otherwise they will choose the stronger one because it has more chances for success. Now, if the conditions are good, that means there's not a lot of snowfalls or rain during the breeding season. There's plenty of food and very well experienced parents that will be sharing the chores of feeding those chicks. Both chicks will make it to the fledging. Now, here at this moment, we can see chicks at about 4 and 5 weeks old. Some of them are in a crèche. They are very well fed. They are just covered in this nice warm down that gives them that soft plumage. However, not very good for swimming yet. They depend on their parents. During the crèche, you will find anything from 5 to about 20 chicks being looked after by other adults. They're not precisely their parents, but they are their caretakers, their guardians.
Very small little rookery. These are likely young birds in total, because it's not prime nesting habitat. They're out in the middle of this beach, quite susceptible to predators, and we're seeing the gentoos expanding their range. So it would have been about 15 years ago there were no gentoo penguins nesting here. So all of the gentoos we see are recent arrivals, and seeing these guys sort of in this small little colony, it's likely that they're probably young birds, and all of them are relatively inexperienced. This is the left and right flipper, which would be analogous to the wing from a young gentoo penguin. And if you remember in the talk yesterday, I mentioned how dorsal ventrally flattened the evolution of the penguin flipper is, and look at that profile of that thing, is wafer thin. as they say. And then you can see this is the humerus here. And, you know, our arm bone is round, you know, more columnar, and this is pretty much flat, but it's extremely, if you look at the way that that flipper is going to work in the water, the insertion into the shoulder here, and then look at how very coolly arced that bone is. And they're solid, unlike the other bird's bones, which would be hollow.
Quite a bit of heavy sea ice ahead of us. You can see Paulette Island in the distance, off of the 11 o'clock position, that cone-topped island. The captain has done a wonderful job of getting us into the ice as far as we can go. You see the spectacular scenery, icebergs trapped inside the ice. Well worth it. Come out on deck, soak it in, and take a few photographs.
They're tiny little Adelie penguins making their way to the sea. They're going to jump in and swim away into this cold environment. They're moving very, very fast, and I just feel like, you know, the reality of just being here in this situation with this beautiful land around us and all this wildlife, it's out of this world.
Alright, so what we're looking at here is this beautiful calf travelling along with its mother. And killer whales form a matrilineal society. So the killer whale calves can be the biggest mummy boys, you know, that you get, because they're going to stay with that family group potentially for their whole life. So these pods, they all know each other, they're very comfortable together, and they hunt together, and they hunt as a team, and that's why they're known as wolves of the sea. There's 5 different types of killer whales in the Antarctic. These are what we call the small type B. So they're about the 3rd largest of the killer whales, and they have that discoloration, you know, so their white patches look yellow. That's actually diatoms, so it's phytoplankton. The waters here are so rich with the diatoms that their white patches of their skin are getting stained, that yellowy colour. The humpbacks are here in the Antarctic waters because this is where they come to feed. They feed for about 120 days of the year, and they take in massive amounts of krill in order to replenish their fat reserves, so they can make their huge migrations up different coastlines. The population that we're looking at here on the peninsula travels up either coast of South America. So they're really fattening themselves up. This young male that we're looking at, he's just cruising along. He's probably been feeding for a couple of days, and he's really just taking a break. And he's looking for other hunting grounds, other feeding grounds, and hopefully he'll find some other young males to pair up with so they can form a small pod. I've been working with whales for many, many years, and I don't think I've ever been able to get so close to a whale with such beautiful clear water. And it was just absolutely incredible to see this whale up so close. He was so comfortable with us being there, and it was just such an amazing experience.
Good evening, everyone, and we're going to show you the first installment of our undersea video. So, wow, you guys are awesome. At Brown Bluff, we took out our ROV, and we went down to 248 feet, 79 meters. So ROVs, you might be familiar with them through movies such as The Abyss and other productions. Also, of course, oil rigs use them quite a lot. But ROVs allow us to go much deeper than we ever would be able to go diving. Our ROV can go down to technically 1,000 feet, but that's a lot of cable and a lot of cable pulling. So it's a little robot. It sits in its own zodiac, and we send it out, and it's attached to us by a umbilical cord or cable. What you're watching at the screen now is actually the ROV going down to the bottom. And as you can see, if you saw in the beginning, it was quite light, and then as we get further down, it gets darker and darker. However, I know many of you were saying how great the visibility was, and it certainly was. I bet that if I turned off the light, at this point, I'm still almost 10 meters off the bottom. So you can see really, really well. And if I turned off the light, I bet you we still would have been able to see. But there are two lights to bring color to the universe, because once you get down that far, then you there's no more color being absorbed. So everything just looks of shades of gray. So the first thing that we found was an anemone. So anemones, related to all stinging animals like jellyfish, here in Antarctica, you can have anemones that are filter feeders. They essentially collect small bits of organic material out of the water column. Or you can also have anemones that are waiting for a sea urchin to wander by unknowingly, and then they'll grab it and eat it up. They're also burrowing anemones. This anemone here actually makes its little place in the silt at the bottom of Brown Bluff. Speaking of the silt at Brown Bluff, this place gets absolutely pulverized by the big icebergs. You know, we enjoy that ice. So you get areas where very little is actually living. So you have the sea urchins and brittle stars, which can actually move. Then you'll find areas with rocks in them, and that's where the soft-celled creatures are actually attaching. Here, we're showing you fish. Fish are actually not very common to see in Antarctica, especially swimming around in the water column. Fish here, they do not have a swim bladder, so they sit on the bottom and they're kind of lie-in-wait predators. So for them to actually be swimming around in the water column, this actually takes a lot of energy. And fish in Antarctica had actually developed osteoporosis through evolution, so that they don't spend as much energy lifting themselves up in the water column. This knowledge about the fish has then led to the National Institute of Health in the United States. They send scientists down to the Antarctic, and then they are taking the RNA from the fish, trying to reverse engineer it so that then they can figure out how humans develop osteoporosis and perhaps do something about it in the future. Now here's our monster of the day. This monster is a whole 2 inches across, but it is a sea spider. So, but kind of a misnomer, because they're actually more closely related to a horseshoe crab than they are to an actual spider. And they are what we say all guts and gonads, and they're all shoved down in their arms, and they move around the bottom, and they're looking for soft-bodied creatures, and they stick their mouth onto them, and they suck all their guts out as well. So that's just the beginning of the underwater footage. More to come, and thank you all very much.
Bravo!
story again. We are approaching another leopard seal straight ahead of us, off the bow. This is the second top predator in the Antarctic. This is a species that feeds on penguins, but also mostly krill. So we have another leopard seal straight ahead of us, off the port bow.
We're going to explore a different area. Here we've seen some good wildlife, magnificent icebergs that do not come from these glaciers. These icebergs can come from any other part, and they're massive. Some of these icebergs with a rangefinder, some of the smaller ones are about 100 feet tall. And remember, this is only about 20 or 30% of the iceberg that actually sticks out of the surface. Right. So it's quite incredible. If you could take them out of the water, it would be like Godzilla emerging from the depths. So these are humpback whales. I'm going to approach slowly. We want to make sure we do not change